Don't know where our lone holdout is, but... Oh, man. Call to come up. Yep. Man, I hate team games. I don't even know why I bother. It's typical. Oh, I should be recording right now. Anyway, welcome to Chapter 3, Part 4. Today we are talking about brain structures in the telencephalon, other structures. Alright, so we already spent some time talking about cortex. Let's talk what other structures fall within the telencephalon. First off, we have the basal ganglia, which are a collection of subcortical nuclei, so collections of cell bodies below the cortex. These include the caudate nucleus, the putamen, and the globus pallidus. Generally speaking, these are involved collectively in the control of movement and are also important for some habit-based forms of learning and memory. In addition to the basal ganglia, we have the limbic system. This is a group of interconnected brain regions, including the amygdala, the thalamus, hippocampus, etc., which are involved in emotional processes and long-term memory. Limbus means border, so the limbic system sort of forms a border between the midbrain structures and the higher order limbic cortex, which is part of the cerebral cortex. So hence the name limbic system. So limbic system, most classically associated with emotional processes and long-term memory. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking about some of these structures that fall within the limbic system. So the amygdala consists of these two bean-sized neural clusters. I say bean-sized, but they're actually more almond-shaped. In fact, amygdala means almond. That's how it gets its name. This is most classically linked to emotion, especially the emotions of fear and aggression. So for example, a rat learning to not cross an electrified grid to reach a goal object depends depends critically on amygdala function to form that aversive emotional memory. So the hypothalamus, as we mentioned elsewhere, is important for several maintenance activities. It helps us maintain homeostasis. So keeping our body in an ideal state with things like managing drive states like hunger and thirst. It also helps govern our endocrine system via the pituitary gland, as we've just discussed already. And the hypothalamus is also linked to emotion and reward. So I linked to a video about a woman with a rare disorder called Urbach-White disease, in which the amygdala is calcified and no longer functions. A really interesting and rare condition in which the patients really don't experience fear in the same way that we do. And because I like to be miserable, I let myself read to the comments, and I found a gem that I wanted to share with you guys. So here is very critical that despite the fact that we know the part that causes fear, we haven't come up with a drug that shuts down that hyperactive amygdala for those people who suffer with anxiety disorders. So that's just wonderful. Well, I mean, there are a number of drugs that treat anxiety disorders. They don't work by shutting down the amygdala, which would be bad if as you saw in the video. It's not great to not have fear. Fear is a pretty adaptive thing. And we do have drugs that do treat anxiety. But as Azrael points out here, perhaps because fear is a powerful weapon, it can help you on your road to spiritual enlightenment, which isn't really something I'd considered. Thanks, YouTube comment. Last up, briefly, the hippocampus, most commonly associated with memory. It's really, really important for the consolidation of short-term memory into long-term memory. So taking those short-term memories, the things that you're sort of working with, thinking about right now, converting them to relatively stable long-term memories depends critically upon the hippocampus. And damage to the hippocampus will result in a loss of memories and an inability to acquire new memories. We will talk in much more detail later on in our learning and memory unit about the structures we've talked about here. And how memory formation and consolidation functions. Oh, and hippocampus means seahorse. Here we have a hippocampus out of a human that's been dissected out, and you can see if it's laid down in a certain way, it sort of resembles a seahorse. So yeah, that's where the name hippocampus comes from. It's the Greek word for seahorse. All right, that's it for this little mini lecture. Next time we are on to the diencephalon.